Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's May 28th City Council meeting. If you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll be following that with a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The last 3 weeks have been pretty devastating in the Midwest. A lot of destruction from the storms, and we've had multiple deaths. And I'd like at this time to take a moment of silence to remember those that have lost their lives in all the mayhem. So. Thank you. You may be seated. We do have one proclamation this evening, and if I could get Ashley Huey, is she here? And would like some of your other members like to come on up here. This is Moms Demand Action. And would you like to introduce everyone and kind of give us a little brief knowledge about you?
Yep. My name's Claudia Patrick. I'm with Moms Demand Action. I'm a volunteer. This is Angie Beck and Amy Bales. We are asking that the 8th of June be proclaimed Gun Violence Awareness Day. We're wearing orange because Haida Pendleton, who walked in Obama's parade in Chicago in 2013, a week later she was killed in a playground on her way home from the library. Her friends decided to wear orange because this is a color of safety when you're a hunter, and orange happened to be her favorite color. So we wear orange to raise awareness for gun violence. Kansas has the 21st most gun deaths in the nation, and I don't remember the percentage right off the top of my head. 69% are suicides, and that's just not right, and we need to stop gun violence. And awareness of the problem is the first step, and that is why we've asked for this proclamation.
Thank you. And you said June 8th?
June 8th, yes.
Okay.
Next Saturday.
Okay, because I've got on here Friday, June 7th here for Bonner. Is that okay?
We start the weekend, so we
Okay.
want to go weekends. We want to do the whole thing, but the day is June 8th.
Okay.
But yes, we'll be celebrating the entire weekend.
Whereas every day, more than 120 Americans are killed by gun violence, more than 200 are wounded, and on average, there are nearly 18,000 gun homicides every year. And whereas Kansas has 456 gun deaths in an average year with a rate of 17.3 deaths per 100,000 people, and the 21st highest rate of gun deaths in the U.S. And whereas cities across the nation, including Bonner Springs, are working to end the shameless violence, or the senseless violence. And whereas gun violence prevention is more important than ever as we see an increase in firearm homicides, increased non-fatality shootings across the country, increased calls for domestic violence hotlines, and an increase in gun violence. And whereas in January of 2013, Adia Pendleton was tragically shot and killed at age 15, and on June 7, 2024, people across the United States will recognize National Gun Violence Awareness Day and wear orange in tribute to Adia Pendleton and other victims of gun violence and the loved ones of these victims. And whereas wearing orange on June 7, 2024, Americans raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. And whereas anyone can join the campaign by pledging to wear orange on the first Friday in June in 2024 to help raise awareness about gun violence. And now, therefore, I, Tom Stevens, Mayor of Bonner Springs, Kansas, do hereby proclaim Friday, June 7th, 2024, to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day in Bonner Springs, Kansas, and encourage all citizens to support their local community efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. My apologies. Continuing with the agenda, our first item is citizens' concerns about items not on tonight's agenda. This would be a time for citizens to address concerns with the council for items that, again, are not on tonight's agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Name and address, please.
My name is Alan Tweddle. My address is 10556 South Hahn Street, Casa Grande, Arizona, 85193. My sister is Chris Wood, and she has just been moved to a rehabilitation center in nearby Wyandotte County, and will eventually be taking visitors, but she's settling in, just to let you know. So I'll be here for a while.
Okay, and we normally don't ask questions, Alan, but she's in good spirits and doing well.
Yeah, she's in pretty good spirits, you know, Chris is. And it's like, what's next? And it's like, well, I've briefed the entire staff at the hospital where she was, and some of them remember her from last Wednesday, coming back in on Friday. And I've asked all the staff every time they leave her room after completing a task to say, and remember to use your walker. So.
Thank you, Alan. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the City Council tonight on items not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, we will move forward. We have an amendment to the agenda. Item number 4 is being added. Ms. Wood, can you, not Ms. Wood, Ms. Spray, can you, and Chris Wood on my mind.
We have added at the last meeting on May 13th, the City Council approved a resolution setting a public hearing for the 120 on Oak RHID. That public hearing falls on June 17th, which is not a council date. So we've added our last item to tonight's meeting would be to rescind that resolution and pass an identical resolution with the date of July 8th, setting the public hearing for July 8th.
So we'll have that agenda amended. With that, we have the consent agenda. We have the minutes of the May 13th, 2024 City Council meeting, claims for city operations, sale of a 2005 Pierce Arrow fire engine, and public use request for Kobe's Bike Rally that has been revised. Is there anybody from the staff that needs to have anything polled? Is there anyone from citizens who wish to have anything polled? Council, anything to be polled?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull number 4, please.
Okay, so item number 4 is being polled. Any other items? If not, I would accept a motion for the remaining 3 items on the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Minus. Are you going to pull number 4 in your motion?
And pull number 4 in my motion, thank you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Shannon and a second by Mrs. Gurley. With that, roll call, please.
Kip?
Yes.
Shannon?
Yes.
Long? Yes. Gurley?
Yes.
McMahon?
Yes.
Blanks? Yes. Motion passes.
Okay, on to item number 4 of the consent agenda that was polled. We have a public use request for Kobe's Bike Rally, staff presentation.
Good evening, Council. My name is Megan Gilliland, Economic Development Coordinator. This event, we actually, I believe, tabled it at a previous meeting because we wanted to go back and look at some logistics. And since that time, the event organizer, myself, and the police department have all sat down and looked at traffic flow on Oak And the public use request in front of you today actually does not close Oak Street. The only portion of the public street that will be closed is Second Street to the north, or to the east of Oak Street, and the south area of Centennial Park. We also know since the last time that I was here, that the pavilion will not be operational by the farmer's market until the 22nd of June. We just set that date today, actually. So there won't be any conflict with the farmer's market with this event. And the decision to not close Oak Street was made because we didn't want to create a bottleneck there at Second and Oak for bikes that would be arriving onto Oak Street. And so since this isn't a very vendor-heavy event, there's 2 food trucks and a few vendors, we just figured closing it at Oak and Second on that side of the intersection would work the best. And then that way bikes can come in and move freely on Oak Street, because it's a come and go kind of event, not just park and stay for a really long time. And then the organizer, Oak Street, or we will kind of have the bikes and things like that on Oak until about 5 o'clock. And then at that time, we'll pull the common consumption signs back to be Centennial Park parking lot only for the evening live music. So we've discussed several of those things, but I stand for questions if you have any for me.
Well, that was,
Hold on. We're not there yet, hold on. Is the applicant here? Would he like to speak on it at all?
No, he's not here.
Okay.
Sorry, you get me tonight.
Is there any members of the public who would like to speak on this matter? Seeing none, I would accept a motion.
Or it will die for lack of motion.
What's in?
Does it need to just say to approve the public use request for the bike rally?
Yeah, well, you could just approve the public use request for the Kobe's Bike Rally.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve the revised public use request for Kobe's Bike Rally on June 15th.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Long, a second by Ms. Blanks, and we'll go down to you, Mr. Shannon.
okay. Actually, the question I had, you did answer about the centennial and stuff. The other part looks great. The question that I had in mind was the location where the motorcycles were to be parked, there where the old Thriftway is, according to the map. Just from the standpoint of looking at the city, since that is private property, anything that occurs on that, are we in jeopardy of anything happening? Not that it would, or would that be between the event organizer and the owners of the property?
I'm not exactly sure how to answer that, but our hope is to keep bikes on Oak Street primarily. I guess Thriftway would be overflow if they have that many. And that's why the downtown businesses were supportive of this event, was to fill Oak with the bikes. For Tiblo Days, and I'm just trying to think of other times when we've used that parking lot, the chamber, because it's a chamber event, has to provide a certificate of insurance. And I can ask if that's necessary for this event.
We do
from
require
the-
a certificate of insurance for all of our public use requests, naming the city as an additional insurer.
Okay.
So, yeah, I can get that.
Because I hadn't seen that before on the map you gave, which was excellent. I just wanted to make sure. So that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Kipp?
No questions.
Ms. Gurley?
Are the owners of the 120 Oak property okay with them using it? So the plan is to close Second Street between Oak and Cedar?
Yes. You're gonna have, well, in the morning, we'll have the farmer's market.
That was my
On
question.
the furthest portion. So we'll only close from that, in front of Nationwide, where we'll put a barricade there. Because there are 2 food trucks that are coming, and they probably will want to come early to capture that traffic. So then after the farmer's market moves out, then we'll push the barricade down to Cedar. But they'll be able to, people, motorcycles or whoever, will be able to park in that parking lot directly next to Nationwide and things like that after the farmer's market. But we will, we've already talked to the farmer's market, they know about the event. We'll work with them on making sure there's still access to that.
Okay. Then the common consumption area includes that section of Second Street, starting at 11 a.m., is that my understanding?
Starting at 11, our common consumption ordinance is not in effect until 11. And so, in theory, yes, somebody could get a beer at Range 23 and walk over at 11. But then, for this event, they don't really need the CCA past a certain time, 5 o'clock on Saturday. So we talked to the chief of police, and he felt comfortable just pulling the CCA boundary signs back at that time to keep it within the parking lot at Centennial Park. And also additionally, Wyandotte County Sheriff will be providing security for the event because there is an event at Sandstone, Azura, that night. And so our police department isn't available, but they've already called in Wyandotte County Sheriff for public safety.
So we won't have any additional overtime for our police force other than what would be a result of the Azura?
I believe that the event organizers have already talked to the sheriff's office about handling that. Yes.
Mr. McMahon? Ms. Banks?
No questions.
Ms. Long?
No questions.
I would just ask one thing. I just want to make sure. I was glad to see that there wasn't going to be a conflict within Centennial Park for farmers market. I know those who volunteer and have worked hard to really establish that and make that a really proud piece of honor. I would hate to see something done that damages that. Secondly, when it does come for the sheriff's department, our police department, does the applicant then pick up some of that cost for that? Trying to understand the implications for our taxpayers for the dollars spent on those.
I think it depends on if it's a city-specific event. Chris, can you address that at all?
I don't think that we have ever had the applicant. Tilly, do you know if we've had the applicant reimburse us for costs of overtime or whatever for the police? Okay.
But in this particular instance, it's going to be the sheriff's department that's going to be.
They've already talked to the sheriff's department, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, concerns, comments from anyone? If not, vote please.
Gurley?
Yes.
Kip?
Yes.
Shannon?
Yes.
Long?
Yes.
McMahon?
Yes.
Blanks?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And just a note on the farmer's market, moving over into the pavilion, like I said, today, we got an update from the construction company, and they plan on having it wrapped up middle of next week. So knowing that this event was happening on the 15th, and knowing that we need a little lead time to set a ribbon cutting or a grand opening or something, we chose the 22nd. Cassandra and I have already been talking about any conflict between that pavilion and Kobe's, and I don't foresee any problems. You know, we want to work with them as a business owner and encourage people to, you know, eat breakfast there on a Saturday because it is one of the only places in downtown you can get a breakfast. So, you know, we're committed to working with Kobe's to make sure that, you know, it's a neighborly place to be. So,
Right. No
and I
issues there.
actually think that when the pavilion is done, he'll see a lot of bicycles parking underneath there when it's not in use.
Oh, yeah, I fully
And
understand.
it'll be a great amenity for him.
I just want to
in
make
the
sure
end.
that there wasn't any kind of, and it wouldn't be any event
Yeah,
potentially causing harm to
yeah.
the farmer's market. So thank you very much, Ms. Gillen. On to new business. We have a presentation this evening by Matthew Willard of the Wyandotte County Appraiser's Office.
Mayor, Council, Thank you guys for allowing me to come and visit with you this evening. This was originally scheduled for 2 weeks ago and had a conflict, and graciously rescheduled it tonight, so thank you very much for that. I'm here to talk about more or less appraised values for the city of Bonner Springs, also a bit about our office and our process. This is real similar for those that were here last year to what we presented last year, updated numbers, a little bit updated information. That said, I'll just jump right in it. I am Matt Willard. I'm the county appraiser for Wyandotte County. I've been with Wyandotte County about 18 years, 3 years as county appraiser. Janae Robbins is with me here this evening. She's the deputy county appraiser. She's been with Wyandotte County 20 years, 3 years as deputy appraiser. We've got 27 employees in our office responsible for the valuation of 67,500 real estate parcels, divided 62,000 residential, including improved properties and vacant lots, and about 5,500 commercial parcels, again, improved parcels and vacant lots, along with 7,550 personal property accounts. That is anything from manufactured homes to boats, trailers, anything you get a rendition for. So anytime I do this presentation, I started off with a note that appraisers, we don't create value. That's down to market participants and their decisions in the marketplace, what they decide to buy and sell property for. As the appraiser, I simply got the legal responsibility to analyze those transactions and appraise those properties based upon what's happening in the marketplace. And it's also important to note that we are an independent office within the UG. Valuations are set prior to the budget process and without any outside influence. So the purpose of what we do, again, is to appraise all real property at fair market value to allow for an equitable distribution of the tax burden. And that's really what our purpose is to apportion, based on the market value of property, each property's portion of the budget via the tax bill. Valuation is market-based. Budget and valuation are separate processes. In the state of Kansas, residential parcels are assessed at 11.5% of market value. Commercial properties are assessed at 25% of market value. To break that down, dollar for dollar, a commercial property is going to pay a little bit more than double the taxes on the same value. Again, it is by statute that we appraise at fair market value. Those assessment rates are set by the Constitution. We do have oversight conducted both on the results of our work as well as how we do the work. One of those measures, one of those oversight measures, is what's called a ratio study. In the state of Kansas, our target appraisal ratio is 100%. That is, any piece of property that sells, we value it at that sale price. That can't happen with 67,000 parcels. We're just not that good, not that perfect. So an acceptable ratio, according to international standards, is between 90% and 110%. Typically, for residential parcels going back 5 years, our assessment ratio from the State Property Valuation Division has been just over 90%, meaning that we are on the low end of that acceptable range. We are typically slightly under appraising properties. So the taxation process, just briefly, we value all property as of January 1st. We send notices this year, sent them March 1st for real estate, May 1st for personal property. That starts a timer to file a valuation appeal. That deadline this year for real estate parcels was March 30th. For personal property, it was May 15th. Once those hearings are completed, and they're done, we certify values to the county clerk no later than June 1st. We're on track to accomplish that. And those values are transmitted to the taxing jurisdictions, include the cities, county, school districts, library boards, community college, drainage districts, SMIDs. Once budgets are figured out, those valuations are used to figure out a mill levy that is applied to generate a tax bill. Those go out due by December 20th for the first half, May 10th for the second half, and we just start the same thing all over again. It's, we revalue every year. And one of the common questions that we get is, why would a tax or my valuation change from last year? The big thing for the last, going back a long time, has been the real estate market. In spite of higher interest rates, in spite of what could be considered drags on the real estate market, people continue to pay more for houses year after year after year. Values continue to increase based on what market participants are paying. We also re-inspect, well, it's 17.5% of the properties. Every property, at least once every 6 years, we're going to go re-inspect, pick up changes. Those can be improvements to the property. Those can be things that are detrimental to the property. We're going to list them and value them based on that. Anytime building permits get taken out, that can impact value. And anytime a property sells, we're going to take a very close look at it, because that's the information and the data that we rely on to establish values for similar properties. So again, during 2023, and this is kind of as of January 1st, 2024, during 23, that sales price growth, it began to slow down from prior years, but the supply of real estate, residential real estate especially, remains very low. We're still a very affordable community within an affordable metro area on a national scale. Rents went up just as fast as sales prices did, so values continue to increase. And I anticipate this is going to continue into 2025. That price appreciation will continue, even with 7% mortgage rates that we've seen over the last 18 months to a year. People are still paying more than they were in past years. And I think it's very much due to that very restricted supply as the reason that we're continuing to see support for those higher sales prices. From the multiple listing service, we looked at January 1st of 22 to January 1st of 23, well, December to December, from 22 to 23. Closed sales were down slightly. The average sales price, and this is countywide, increased 17% to $242,250. The median sales price was up 23% to $227,500. Days on market increased slightly. Buyers were receiving more of their list price month to month or year to year than they were in the prior year. Pending sales were up slightly. Inventory was down slightly. And we had under a 1.5 month supply, which is still very much a seller's market. When I talked earlier about being a very affordable community within a very affordable metro, this slide contains data from Redfin. Selected Redfin only because they track data from surrounding counties, and it's all based on their data. It's all looked at the same way. If we look at Wyandotte County, their average sales price that they tracked was $235,000 as of December 2023, up 27% year over year. That is definitely the biggest increase in the metro. Surrounding communities saw slower price increases. Jackson County and Kansas City, Missouri have a similar median sales price. But if we look at Johnson County to the south, $433,000 was their average. Leavenworth County was a bit higher. Platte County was substantially higher. Clay County substantially higher. So again, Wyandotte County is still attractive because it is an affordable place to come and buy a single-family residence. This slide just shows that change. If we look back at 2020, which is going to be the light gray bars on the left-hand side, the typical sales price or most sold sale price in Wyandotte County was anywhere between $100,000 and $150,000. By the time we get to 2023, and this would show a very similar trend if we went back several years, but that has changed. That median price point has changed between $200,000 and $300,000. So just, again, big increases in what people are paying for residential properties. This is the sales that we track and use for our analysis. The median Sales price for the sales that we used was $215,000. I apologize. This map shows our model or market areas. Bonner Springs is in Model 9. The importance of those neighborhood or those model boundaries is that as we're setting values, comparable sales are never going to cross those boundaries. Land values are never going to cross those boundaries. And we have smaller geographies, neighborhood groups, neighborhoods, and then down to subdivisions if we can. But the data that's on the right-hand side is from within those boundaries. Model 9, Bonner Springs, the median sale price for 2023 was $314,950, up from $285,000 the year before. So again, big increases in sales prices. What that amounts to for the city of Bonner Springs overall is, they're raw numbers, a 10% increase in real estate assessment. That is guaranteed to be lower because this was as of the date that we mailed notices. We've since had appeals. Any IRB projects will come out of this as well because they'll get an exemption eventually. But 10%, that usually drops, well, don't know what it's going to drop. But a pretty substantial increase in real estate assessments. The median single-family residence, the value increased by about $14,500 to $265,650. That $265,650, if we compare it to the median sales price of $314,950, there's a difference there. The reason for that being is typically when a house sells, there's been some work done. We recognize that in our valuations. So there is a gap there. That's the explanation. And again, the universe of properties that are contained in the city aren't necessarily perfectly represented by the 80 sales that we had last year. That 10% increase also doesn't include utility or personal property values because we don't know or didn't know what those were at that point. At current mill levies, that will equate to an increase of approximately $265,000 to all taxing jurisdictions for that median single-family residence. That is substantially lower than it was last year for Bonner Springs. Talked about that sales price appreciation slowing down. That's reflected in the work that we've done here for 2024 values.
I can ask you, interrupt you just a second before you switch slides.
Absolutely.
Current mill levies, is that reflective of a Bonner tax bill, or is that based upon a general for Wyandotte County as a whole?
Wyandotte County as a whole, but there's, I mean, it would move a few.
You have such different, and that's why.
Yeah, that is all, so all levies countywide. So you got your Bonner City portion that makes up a portion of it, but the county, or the library, school district, county, that's
Right,
all still in.
But the mill levy we're talking about here is one that somebody who lives in Bonner would see. They're 5 mill levies. In other words, you're not looking one from KCK that might include USD 500, the library. That mill levy is strictly the 5 government entities that would affect a Bonner resident.
I would actually honestly have to go back and review,
Okay.
because I mean, there's a couple of ways to go about it. I don't know that the difference in the mill levies would move that a ton. It might go $10 one way or the other. And I think that was probably a countywide average, just for the sake of simplicity. But I'd have to go back and look. And that's actually just about the end. Talk about that taxable or assessed valuation. In Bonner Springs, Bonner Springs City, about 65% of that tax burden is carried by residential owners, 30% carried by commercial. You got farmstead, which is residences with agricultural use attached, making up about 2%, and about 3% is vacant land. With that said, that's really all the presentation I've got. Happy to stand for questions, though.
Thank you, Mr. Willard. We'll go ahead and start down here with Ms. Long. Do you have any questions for Mr. Willard?
No questions at this time, thank you.
Thank you.
Mines?
No questions.
Thank you.
Mr. McMahon?
I have no questions at this time.
Ms. Gurley?
Can you speak to what a re-inspection process is? One of the comments I see frequently is, well, nobody's been out to inspect my property. But what does that do? What does that mean?
So the way that it is occurring currently is, go back to the way it used to work. We'd all get in a car, go to a neighborhood, knock on doors, measure, interview. We've figured out that houses don't grow, so that measurement isn't necessarily as important. So we've implemented data collection tablets, mobile data collection. We're going to drive to the house, observe the front, take an updated photo, make any changes that are apparent from that. If it looks like something is missing, we're going to get out, measure, walk around, interview. We've also got what's called oblique imagery. It's a 45-degree angle of every property in Wyandotte County that allows measurements well within a foot down to a couple inches. So we can review, get views of backyards, see if anything has changed back there. What we find from those inspections is the most common changes that we find are changes in condition, where there's either been work to remodel or there's been deterioration. Those things are hugely important to value, and those are the things we're really looking to capture.
Thank you.
I just want.
Absolutely, thank you.
I want to make sure that I understood correctly, that you said basically that real estate drives the appraisal process?
Absolutely.
Kind of, okay. You didn't use those exact words, but does that seem unfair to you in light of where we have people, as you, I believe, not to quote you exactly, but you said that there are people out there paying a lot more for a house than
Sure.
what is, what is above what you felt an appraised value. Do you feel that's fair?
Well, I feel that that's the system that we operate under. I'll say that. It's not my position or job to judge fairness as far as that goes. What I will say is it's more than a few people that are paying big bucks. This is what anytime a house sells, we're seeing. So if it was a situation where we had some people that were just, as buyers, getting ripped off, that's a different situation than the one we're in. But no, I mean, I think as long as we are establishing our values to market and doing our job correctly, it's the best way to ensure that that tax burden is equitably distributed, whatever that tax burden winds up being once budgets are set.
I know, I know you probably didn't ask this question a lot, but does appearance of the house, in other words, where people keep their place up, not like a Taj Mahal, but they keep it up versus, does that influence the appraised value?
So if we have indications, so you've got to have a typical, you've got to have a normal, right? So that normal maintenance, as long as it's happening, that's going to be just a normal house for the neighborhood, and it's not going to move the needle one way or the other. If a house begins to deteriorate, that's going to sell for less, and so it's going to be valued less accordingly. And if somebody comes in and puts a tile roof and, nice stucco siding, whatever, does a big remodel that way, that's likely going to sell for more. But that typical maintenance, that keeping a place painted, keeping siding repaired, keeping a roof in working order, that's just keeping it typical, and we're not going to increase just based on those things.
Does the, using your example of the house that has deteriorated enough, does that in any way affect the houses next to it because they keep theirs up? Does that depreciate, does that, in your judgment, depreciate the existing home that's being taken care of versus the house that isn't?
Sure. We don't have the granular data to say, yep, absolutely, if this one starts to turn, it's going to drag everything else down with it. What we've seen last 2-3 years, as far as what people are purchasing, I don't know that it has much of an effect at all, if any, just because the supply of houses is so tight. you're still gonna have buyers lining up to buy that house next to it and on the other side if it goes. And again, maybe 10 years ago, that may have made a difference. But I think people are looking at availability and then the quality and condition of the house that they're looking to buy, maybe more than they did in the past.
Thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Is this presentation publicly available?
There's actually, so this one, Christina has it. Feel free to distribute it. No issue there. On our website at wicokck.org, there's the master presentation. Has a ton more data in it. It doesn't have the Bonner Springs specific stuff, but it's 80 slides. It's big. Ton of information there. If you were going to share one, I'd ask you to share that one just because it's there's a lot more there. It goes into depth on the appeal process and some other things that we didn't cover here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Questions?
I have one more question. On the slide that showed all the counties and the percentages of the year over year, why was Wyandotte County significantly higher than surrounding counties?
Again, what I attribute that to is affordability. This is a county where most people, or a lot of people, could come in and purchase a house. Where Johnson County, maybe that's not the case anymore, just because of that median sales price. It also has to do with kind of the mix of what's selling. Again, that's the data that they're tracking, so I can't necessarily speak to it. But that's been the trend with that slide for the last few years, and that's what I put it down to, is there is property here to buy and a price range that's affordable for, I mean, at this point, middle-class people to come in and be able to afford to buy, where that's not necessarily the case in some surrounding communities.
I just also want to, I honestly was blacking out during most of this presentation.
I have that effect on
To
people.
be quite honest, I am not a homeowner, and I think that just set the needle back so far. I'm trying to get my thoughts together. But the whole time was thinking, so we let realtors set the market and just say it's the norm, and that's how it's always been, considering it's a field that works off percentages, and if we actually look at the evaluation of homes and how old they are, materials, yards, quality.
And we do.
And the needle just does not move backward. As we all know, it moves forward, and
So,
to see $235,000 as a median income of a home is just like
what's the median
unbelievable.
value for a home? So, say the needle doesn't move backwards. I started here in 2006, right before the needle started moving backwards. So real estate doesn't always move in one direction. We saw a crash in 2006 to 2010. Our values reflected that. I mean, so our values declined that we established, that we set during that period. So hopefully they're disastrous either way. It doesn't go up forever as far as real estate values. And then realtors, compared to the share that they had 10 years ago of property sales, that's shrinking year after year after year. More people are using alternative listing services where there's never a realtor involved. We're seeing a lot more person-to-person sales. And so the realtor has a role in it, right? They can list it, show it to other realtors. But at the end of the day, it's that seller, what they're willing to sell for, and that buyer, what they're willing to purchase for, that establishes that sales price. Realtors facilitate that sometimes, but not always. And we do look at the construction of the house, the quality of the construction of the house, condition. We do look at that when we set values to compare to other properties that have sold. So we do look at that. But, you know, the housing market prices, it does absolutely make it tough on folks to purchase in a lot of cases. And I don't know what the solve for that is.
I do appreciate your time. I think it's right now just very hopeless. And I look at the residents who live in Bonner Springs and Edwardsville, and they are not of a class that can afford a $230,000 plus home. And the unfortunate thing is most of those homes need $100,000 put into them. Like, they're not even true starter homes. They're more like projects. So I think it's hard for all of us when our constituents ask us, why are my taxes so high, especially senior citizens? Are those truly on a fixed income, or a teacher or police officer? It just makes it really, really difficult, because I just want to be like, it does suck.
And taxes are burdensome anywhere, state of Kansas. I mean, it's an issue that isn't just a Wyandotte County issue. For your seniors, there is some relief that's available. You've got the homestead that will refund a portion of the property taxes. You've also got what's called I call it the golden years tax rebate. I'm not sure if it ever got an official name. What it does, it's passed in 2021, it acts as a property tax freeze. So the year you become eligible, or 2021, so turn 65, whatever the property taxes were that year, it freezes them there, and any increases above that get rebated on your income tax bill. So, I mean, there are things to help for that. And then just another thing to keep in mind, that the valuation, that's an apportionment, that's just the share. The budget also has an impact on what a tax bill is. So let's say there is a 10% increase in assessed valuations. What taxes end up doing is down to the taxing jurisdictions and what they decide to do with budgets and thereby mill levies.
Well, thank you again for your time, and like Danny said, to have that publicly available for us to post, to kind of help people walk through it, because I think that's the biggest question we get is, what's the procedure on this, so.
Like I said,
thank you for your time.
that one on our website is probably a better one to give out just because it's got a ton more information. Thank you, everybody.
I was going to say, is there any other questions?
Yeah, it's not a question, maybe a comment. And very compelling, Emily. I get where you're coming from. I think it's a concert of components in this housing. And I'm not a marketing expert by any means, but I think you got to put some of the weight on the lenders, the banks. Not so much,
Yeah.
kudos to your realtors, but they're not the final say in any of this, so.
Correct.
There's a huge concert that's going on out there, so, yeah, that's the way I perceive it, and
Well, and I do.
you have to watch inflation, and we have debts we need to pay.
It's inflation, and it's also supply and demand. A impact of the housing crisis we had in 2008 is that building for multifamily retail, for multifamily housing, and single-family housing, it just stopped.
Right.
There's a lost decade there where we just didn't build any.
Right.
And that's caught up with us, along with inflation, along with these other factors, to make for a tough market.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone? Thank you, Mr. Willier. That was a great presentation, and that website would be at the UG Wyco KCK website, and then under the appraiser's office.
Yep, wykokck.org/appraiser.
Okay, thank you very much. On with item number 2, 2024 street resurfacing change order, request number 1. Staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Matt Beets, Deputy Director of Public Works. This evening, I'm bringing forward a change order with Phillips Paving Company. They're the company we hired to do all of our street resurfacing this year. This change order comes for a couple of reasons. We had a snafu on our bid form that actually had we were off on the quantity number on our bid form, which is what the contractors used to bid the project. And the other part of it was we out in the Lay Valley subdivision, we ran into about 10 different spots and we had to do full depth patching, which was nothing that any of us anticipated. Those all spots all showed up after, as soon as we milled the top surface off. We started seeing problems with the subbase. The contractor has are getting close to wrapping up this project now. They've already had to do the work out in Lay Valley. We couldn't hold them up for this meeting's approval tonight to do those spaces. So they're working under the assumption that if this doesn't pass, then we'll basically hold back on doing 118th Street this year. We'll have to use those funds to pay for the full depth patches that had to be done. So to pay for this year, we actually had carryover money from the last year's resurfacing that would help pay for this. And we also had a little overage in quantities for the 118th Street project, which would also help offset the cost. So I'll answer any questions I can.
Any other staff input at all? Anyone from residents who wish to speak? Seeing none, I would accept a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the change order number 1 with Phillips Paving Company, Inc. for $78,726.22 and authorize the city manager to sign.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Blanks, a second by Mr. McMahon, and we'll go ahead and start with you, Mr. McMahon. Any questions?
Well, I was going over into Deerfield today, and they were paving and getting after it. So, and I think they're working in concert with Sites, or there's another company that was out working on a culvert, getting some stuff ready. Sheets, yeah.
Yeah, it's a contractor. Public Works was
that
using.
You guys use and all that. So yeah, they're making progress, and snafus. You were talking about some unexpected issues that surface, which is totally common in the construction world.
Ms. Gerber? Mr. Shannon? Ms. Blanks?
No questions. Thanks, Matt.
Ms. Long? No questions. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. It's good to see these getting taken care of pretty quick this year. Not putting them off until August, September, October. So if there's no more questions or comments, I would call for the vote. Oh, did you have something else, Ms. Long?
No.
Oh, I thought you were saying something. Sorry. Go
Shannon?
ahead.
Yes.
Long?
Yes.
Kip?
Yes.
McMahon?
Yes.
Gurley?
Yes.
Blanks?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everybody.
And a little bit in the same area real quickly. They have started on the western side of the city on Kump as well. So they've ripped it so far, have ripped it off from county line to Bluegrass. I assume they'll have that all completely. Yeah, that's a different contractor, different. I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware that that is moving forward as well. So. Okay, on to item number 3, the governing body policy, city council invocations.
Chris Briggs, City Clerk. At the last meeting, the governing body approved a standard order of business, and in that was included an invocation. Staff thought that it would be prudent to create a policy around that to make sure that we're fair and equitable to everybody. Staff reached out to multiple cities that have had policies in place, that have been, some of them that have gone through the court system and been vetted through the court system, put the policy together, borrowed from a lot of cities, presented it to our city attorney, who approved the policy and then included it. And then included that policy into the agenda for review by the council. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Brake. Any other comments from council, from staff? Any resident that would like to speak on it? Or?
No, I'm just here to.
You're just here to answer questions. Okay. With that, I would accept a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the governing body policy, city council invocations as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Shannon, and a second by Mr. McMahon. We'll go ahead and start here with you, Ms. Blanks.
No questions.
Ms. Long?
No questions.
McMahon?
Chris, thanks for, pulling this information together and kind of, going, looking at other towns and just kind of seeing how they do it to create a template and some sort of parameter to pray within, which is important. Parameters are good. And I guess one of my questions would be, and I noticed, and I've read through everything, so who we're acknowledging and what we're acknowledging and why we acknowledge. And I just, you were specific on some of what names to bring up when we're praying and what names not to bring up when we're praying, which is fine. In the grand scheme of things, this is a success in terms of reinstating an invocation, which I think is great. I think it was clear when this was brought up at our last meeting that Bonner Springs is predominantly a Christian town, and we saw that with constituents, people that live in our community, coming forth and expressing their not concerns, but their approval of moving forward with having an invocation and so forth. So I just, I don't want to parse anything. I feel like we've made progress by doing this, and we can and how we reference and who we reference and how we reference this. So I will state that I felt like the prayers that we had previously by Pastor Fenoyd, I thought were eloquent and fair, and basically asking God's protection over primarily our first responders, and asking God to give us wisdom as council members and a protection over our city. So, and we can do that in the name of God, and so I'm good with that. So this is good that we did this, and so when you're setting up, people had to, not just anyone's going to pray, they need to sign up or get their name on a list, and so there could potentially be some meetings without having an invocation because we just didn't have enough people to sign up. And if that's the case, then do we just bypass that, or do we have someone to fill in, or these things you need to know in advance? We just can't pull somebody off the bench and do an invocation, per se, if there is a gap.
Moment of silence, I thought it said.
So if this policy is adopted, if someone wants to give an invocation, they just need to reach out to my office.
Right.
And they'll be put on the schedule, first come, first serve.
Okay.
To give the invocation. If we don't have someone scheduled for the invocation, if this policy is adopted, step 6 says in the event of a scheduled invocational speaker fails to appear or there is no scheduled speaker, the council will observe a moment of silence.
Okay. So no one from council would be conducting an invocation then?
Probably not.
I think it specifically states that.
It's asking, I forgot about that.
Yeah, item
Okay.
number 7.
Okay.
Ben?
That's all.
Ms. Gurley?
Can we discuss a little bit about item 14, first come, first serve? How is that going to look to keep the same person from coming in every single meeting?
My belief on that when I was putting this into policy is that I would encourage everyone to email. And that makes it very easy to see which email came in first. Even if I don't catch it right away, I can see which one came in first. To ask for an individual meeting at a time. I have received 2 requests since the last meeting for 2 people, different individuals wanting to give an invocation. One of them gave a specific date in the future that they would like to give in the invocation. The other one didn't say. So either one of those would be how I would anticipate communication going forward. And if it comes to a point where we're receiving multiples for a meeting and we can't determine who's the first one, then we may need to come back and revisit the policy.
So there's no restriction on someone requesting every meeting? If the goal behind the policy is to allow for equitable representation,
I know that some of the policies that I looked at did limit the number of meetings that they could request at a time, but I don't think that I put that in there, but we could look at adding that and say, you know, if the council wants to limit to one meeting at a time, or if the council wants to limit how many times in, per se, a calendar year, someone could give an invocation, we could add that to the policy.
I would like to see that explored a little further.
What was that?
I would like to see that explored a little further.
Okay.
To allow for that, regardless of who it is or who they're speaking to or behalf of, to allow a more equitable, opportunity.
Anything else, Ms. Gurley?
That's all.
Okay, Mr. Kipp? Mr. Shannon?
I don't know that, I'm not sure what you feel on that, Danny, but I can, talk to you privately about it, I guess.
It's just as simple as, I don't feel like one person should email at 12:01 tomorrow morning to get on next meeting's agenda, and then after that meeting, email at 12:01 to get on for the next meeting. I think it should be open to other people in the community having the opportunity.
Oh, I think this is great. I apologize, I was kind of going on what we've been, what's been in the past, where we've had the invocation, and there hasn't been, to my knowledge, over the many years we've been able to do this, which is a blessing, that there hasn't been anything of that kind, and I'll certainly stand, corrected and stuff. So I was just trying to understand. It's kind of hard to get my mind wrapped around it, because we haven't had anything where there's been any problems in the past. Problems is the wrong word, where there hasn't been anything in the past. So I was just trying to understand it. I don't know what else to say. That's it.
Ms. Blanks? Ms. Long? I'll address the one question concerning you, Mr. Shannon. The previous policy, we did not allow anybody to ask to do an invocation. The previous mayor always went out and asked an individual to come forward. We did not allow someone from the public to request to give an invocation. That is the reason the concerns from Ms. Gurley is somebody doesn't try to then circumvent that.
Monopolize and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I understand.
So that
what you're
way,
saying now.
everybody, since we're allowing members of the public now to come forward and request, we want to give everybody ample opportunity to come.
I always felt that was the opportunity that the previous administration had offered, where he went out and presented the opportunity for people to do it, and there were people that came and did it. Not that he asked specifically, okay, next 2 weeks you do it, and 2 weeks after that you do it.
He was asking the reverends, the ministers of the churches.
Right, for the opportunity to do it.
Which limited, you didn't allow residents themselves, who may not be a member of a church.
I see what you're saying now. Oh, yeah, if there's residents that definitely want to step up, super, yeah, this is open to all our families.
Did you want to interject something, Mr. Trent?
Well, Mr. Mayor, what I would suggest is, first of all, let me commend you all for attempting this. I think it's very significant. There are some points in here that can rub some people the wrong way. However, it is an attempt to create a policy that's fair. And so for Ms. Gurley's suggestion, for example, it could be as simple as adding a word like in paragraph 14, instead of on a first-come, first-served basis, just saying on a rotating first-come, first-served basis. But those are things you can figure out as you go. I wouldn't borrow tomorrow's troubles today. I'd simply give it a try and see how it works, and you can always change the policy. You know, there are lots of things in here you could be very specific about and make very specific additions to your policy. I wouldn't encourage that. I'd say give it a try, see how it works. And you know, Chris can call me someday and say, hey, what do we need to do here? And we can talk about language or something, or you all can figure that out. But again, I think it's a valid effort to be fair to the community. There are a lot of different ways to look at it, and the only way you'll find out for sure is to try it.
Thank you, Mr. Trent. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
I was just going to ask, does anyone know, I mean, was this something we've always done as a council, or was this something that was just under the previous administration?
I'd have to go back.
Those of you that
I
have
think
been
it was
here for a
introduced-
while?
It was introduced about 7 years ago. I
7 years ago?
believe. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, concerns, comments? Seeing none, I would call for a vote.
Before we call for a vote, Mayor, can
Yes.
we clarify if we want to put the word rotating in item 14, as Mr. Trent suggested, so that it would read, to request to give the invocation at a council meeting, contact the clerk who will schedule the request based on a rotating first-come, first-served basis, or do we want to leave it as it is?
I would ask, would the person who made the motion, would they be willing to have that amendment made to their motion?
Yeah, if everybody else,
And what about the second?
to clarify it, to make it easier for everybody to understand and open it up to everybody, absolutely.
And this person who did the second?
Yes.
Okay. Any additional questions, comments, concerns from anyone? That's what you needed there, so if so, we can go ahead and call for the vote.
Yep.
No.
Shannon?
Yes.
Long?
No.
McMahon?
Yes.
Blanks?
No.
Gurley?
No.
Motion fails.
Okay, the motion fails, correct? With that, I would entertain another motion. We don't have to vote on it. It's just a resolution. It could go, but we would not have an invocation policy. So the question is, are there? We don't have an invocation policy, correct?
But we still have an invocation because we voted that in last time.
Yes.
That sounds dangerous.
Is that what everybody wants then? Seeing none. I'd say at this point in time, we do not have a policy. We will not have a policy. We'll move on to item number 4. Let me ask you, Ms. Blake, what was the vote on that? It was a 4-2 vote, right? Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure there wasn't a tie, that I needed a vote, so. Okay, we'll go on to item number 4 then, for revoking and starting and reissuing a new resolution for the RHID for 120 Oak. Would staff like to make a presentation on this, Ms. Gillen?
I think that Chris and Sean did an excellent job of explaining what happened. I literally was looking at the resolution today and realized that the date was a date of, that was not a city council meeting. And we had the two options of asking you to hold a special meeting or just doing this administrative change tonight, and we'll renotice the letters and the publications so that we have the time needed for the public hearing to happen. So apologies, wish I would have gotten this 2 weeks ago.
Any of the residents like to speak on it? Got to say it, right?
And just so you know, I did talk to the developers to confirm that the July 8th would work. And they said it was fine, not a really big deal in their timeline overall. So they're aware of the change being made.
Okay, thank you. We might need a little bit of help with the wording of this resolution. Ms. Brake?
Is here on the memo?
Make a motion to adopt a resolution to set a public hearing.
It would be, make a motion to adopt a resolution to set a public hearing for July 8th, 2024 at 7:30 PM to establish the RHID to be known as 120 on Oak Apartments Reinvestment Housing Incentive District and rescind the prior resolution. Is that the correct wording?
Rescinding the prior resolution, setting the public hearing.
So moved.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to.
Oh, no, she already moved it,
Oh,
so.
I thought you, I didn't know we had to
Would you
actually
like
repeat
to-
it.
She went ahead and just
Second
moved
it.
what she said. so.
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion by Ms. Gurley that was dictated by Ms. Brake. And then we have a second by Ms. Blanks. Any comments? We'll start down there with you, Mr. Shannon. Mr. Kip?
Nothing.
If everything goes well on the 8th, is it like signed, sealed, and delivered, or is there any more back and forth?
You'll have the development agreement that you'll be voting on that evening. So any sort of incentives or stipulations within the development agreement will be up for you to discuss and approve that night. If there's anything left, I would say it would be on probably the site planning or planning issues that might be back and forth between the city planner. But the project will basically have its green light to move forward with council. You'll give it the green light if you choose to move it forward.
Okay. Thank you for all your work on this. I know Tyler's not here, but Sean, I know this has been a lot of work, and a lot of back and forth. So thank you for your work on this. I think if it passes, it'll be great for our downtown in Bonner.
Ms. Long? Thank you, Ms. Gillen, for all your efforts and work on this. I'm sorry we got the date wrong on that one, so. But if there's no more questions, comments, concerns, I would call for the vote.
Long? Yes. McMahon?
Yes.
Gurley?
Yes?
Kip?
Yes.
Shannon?
Yes.
Blanks?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And with that, that takes us on to the city manager's report. Mr. Peterson?
I just want to point out that the Aquatic Center is open. The kids report that the temperatures are freezing cold by way of chattering teeth, but do want to thank the Employee Engagement Committee. We did have sort of a soft opening on Friday that allowed for a employee kind of get together up there, as well as a opportunity for the new lifeguards and staff to throw around a mannequin and scare everybody as far as training is concerned. But that has gone over very well as far as the pool opening and getting that back up and running.
How are the staffing levels?
Say again?
How is staffing?
I think really good, actually. I can't remember the exact number that we're at, but it's up from our previous years as far as where we're at to date. So that's a positive. And everything at the pool is up and running as well. So including the purple slide, which was out for a portion of the year last year. Big deal, Chris. Big deal when that thing's out. But again, that's a welcomed Bonner tradition on Memorial Day weekend to have that up and going. So do just want to point out that we, as you probably noticed, we did get the digital sign installed here at the corner. So that is under construction still. Some electrical needs to go in, but that's part of sort of the community branding effort that's been going on to replace some of the signs that you're seeing at the gateways into town, and that's just one more little piece to help with identifying this facility, but also as a billboard of sorts to help advertise events throughout the community. So again, some good projects there. Other than that, that is all I have tonight.
Thank you, John. And we'll on to the council reports, hot council items. Start with you, Ms. Long.
I just wanted to say, I've been asked a few times, and I'm sure Megan has too. Bonner Blast has been announced for Thursday, June 27th from 5 to 9. There will be food trucks, the lovely city band, and then fireworks to be followed.
Mr. McMahon.
I just want to say, for all the people that participate with Farmers Market, they're doing a fantastic job. I always try to make a point to get by and just do a quick walk and see the team out there. They're doing fantastic. And I had to make a choice tonight to either come to this or umpire for the U15 boys baseball down at Lions Park, and it was a tough decision because I was going to bring out the old ASA umpire uniform and do it, but I thought, well, I had to send Justine that text message, actually Tatum, that I was going to come to city council. So we can use some umpires down there, and I'd team up with anybody that want to go down there and call balls and strikes. I think it's a lot of fun. Matt? Yeah, he said no, not me. He played ball, I know that. But anyway, so there's a lot of things going on in Bonner in terms of community and activities and stuff, and I think it's great, and let's just support it all best we can.
Thank you, Mr. McMahon.
Thursday is our first city band rehearsal for the season, 7 o'clock at the high school. Come and play. Next week starts concerts at 8:30 at Kelly Murphy Park.
Well, with that brings it to the mayor's report. I really don't have too much to add. You noticed the agenda was updated this earlier today, and the mayor's report was added to it. I was a little bit procrastinated getting that on there. Wasn't like I had a whole lot on there. But I just wanted to bring up the same thing with Ms. Gurley. The band concert will be starting June 6th. So Mr. McMahon is also going to help with some of the MC duties. In fact, you may end up having a lot more of it on that first night than he expected, but I'll have a conversation with him afterwards.
Should be easier than umpiring.
You never know.
Yeah, that's true.
So if there's nothing else, no other questions from me, I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn the council meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adjourn the council meeting.
We have a motion by Ms. Gurley, a second by Mr. McMahon. All those in favor? I'm sorry, Mr. Kipp, my apologies. Too many marks. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Meeting adjourned.